If you're wondering whether to read Damn Reincarnation, here's our no spoiler take in under 60 seconds. Plot 7 out of 10. A reincarnation classic with a twist. Hero comes back smarter, saltier, and on a mission. Solid story, a few predictable beats. Characters 9 out of 10. Fully realized, emotionally compelling, and refreshingly complex. Even the villains have depth and feelings. Writing style 7 out of 10. A bit clunky in the original Korean, but the translation does its best to smooth things over. Occasionally flowery, but never boring. World building 7 out of 10. A functional backdrop for the action. Not super deep, but you'll remember the sword names more than the city names anyway. Originality 8 out of 10. Starts with the reincarnation trope, but swerves into fresh territory. No scheming family politics, no evil young masters, just a lot of past life trauma and demon hunting. Pacing 7 out of 10. Uneven with some arcs that drag, but when it moves, it really moves. Stick with it for the payoff. Quirkiness 6 out of 10. Not quirky, more like mildly eccentric but comforting. Final score 7 out of 10. A cozy power fantasy that balances action and emotion. Familiar but polished and definitely worth your time. Welcome to Wuxiaworld's Teahouse Season 2. I'm your host, Yoj.
And I'm Toki. Today we're talking about one of the bigger Korean web novel on Wuxiaworld, Damn Reincarnation.
So, what's it about then?
Wasn't this novel under you? Why are you asking me?
Yeah, but if you're the one giving the summary and the review, it makes us seem less biased, you know?
Okay. So, I'm sure it's not because you forgot what this novel is about, right?
No, absolutely not. It's really not that. No.
Sure, okay, I believe, yeah. Anyway, Damn Reincarnation is an action-packed fantasy reincarnation novel written by Mongma. And it has a webtoon adaptation to its name too, which is always a good sign if you ask me. The story follows Hamil, a battle-hardened warrior who's reincarnated as the descendant of his old frenemy, the legendary hero Vermouth. Awkward. Even better, Eugen remembers... Oh, Eugen is Hamil, by the way, okay? Eugen remembers everything from his past life as Hamil, skills, grudges, sarcasm, and he's determined to continue the fight against the Demon Kings that began in his previous life. Without giving too much away, let's just say Hamil, or Eugen, is back with a vengeance. And this time, he's not holding back on anything.
So the fun part for you is that Eugene has Hamil's memory. Because for me, it was the absolute outrage he felt when he found out he was Vermouth's, descendant and has absolute potty mouth.
Okay, I'll just have to ask you something.
Yeah?
What does potty mouth mean? Because I think what I'm thinking right now and what you thought when you said that is completely different, right?
I don't know, what are you thinking? Because, potty mouth, he's cursing and, just...
Oh, so someone who has a foul mouth, right?
Yeah. What is the potty mouth for you,
Okay.
then?
Oh, I just thought the mouth was a potty, okay.
No, Google Dictionary says a tendency to use bad language.
Okay, alright. I think I've been too corrupted by certain novels.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Okay, anyway, let's get on with it. So,
yes, I agree.
With that out of the way, let's get on with the reviewing.
Yes. Okay, so we don't have the team with us since they're all working on different novels now, but I did bug them for their scores, so we'll be going over those today.
Alright, so first up, plot. We have Dan the Man giving it a 7. He says that plot armor and Deus Ex Machina really irks him, but fortunately, nothing like that was in Damn Reincarnation, and it was overall very enjoyable to read. Wait. Wait, let me just read that again. He says that plot armor and Deus Ex Machina really irks him, which I thought is why he gave it a 7. But fortunately, nothing like that was in Damn Reincarnation, and it was overall very enjoyable to read. Why are the translators under you so harsh? What the hell is wrong with them?
I would also like to know that. Why? Thankfully, Open Bookworm is a lot more generous by 1 point and gave it an 8 because he liked the twist at the end that kept it from, being the generic Demon King and hero storyline. Thank you, Open Bookworm.
Well, he might be the only one giving it an 8 because Momo agrees with Dan and gave it a 7. Her reason? It was enjoyable and kept her eager to find out what happens next.
Guys, if you're gonna say it's enjoyable, why the 7? 7 out of 10 is 70%. That's like barely passing.
Maybe they're like me and think enjoyable is average and only novels that bring in something new is worth a better score.
So harsh. I have a feeling that all of you guys are gonna be stereotypical Asian parents and say like, oh, 100, that's okay, 100 is okay. But why didn't you get 110%?
and then in front of other people, they're gonna say, oh, my kid is so dumb. He's, they think that's humble. But anyway, what about you then?
I mean, like, are you asking about my parenting? I would probably be like, oh no, you got a 60%, but you learned from that? Oh, okay, then that's fine, you learned something.
Okay, let's file that under differences in quote-unquote hypothetical parenting and move on to
we don't have kids, so we don't have hypothetical. We don't have kids. Okay, yeah, let's move on.
Okay, look at that. They're much more generous with their scores this time. Yeah, with
Thank you, guys. Yeah, so Dan gave it an 8 for characters since they're well written and developed throughout the story. And OBW gives it a 9, saying that he loved the characters, that each of them were memorable, though there were some that he felt were flanderized over the course of the novel, but nothing overwhelming. Yay!
Oh, damn Reincarnation. Momo gives it a perfect 10 out of 10. The characters were really fleshed out, no generic single-dimensional characters in this novel. Even the so-called bad guys had depth to their characters, making us sad at their passing. That actually sounds like me. I love it when characters aren't one-dimensional and then they have their own backstory. I mean, you know that, right?
Yes, we all know that by now. You love it when a novel has characters as main dishes and not as side dishes. We all know that.
Hey, Yoj, I have a question though.
Yeah?
Have you eaten yet? Have you had dinner or something?
Yes, why?
Why are you suddenly saying main dish, side dish? I mean, I have never heard anyone talk about characters being fleshed out like that, like there's some snack.
I have no idea why I said that either, but yeah, I do want a snack now.
Anyway, let's continue before you further incriminate yourself. And you can get something to eat later. Okay, yes. Writing style. Dan gives it a 6, saying that the Raws were at times a bit meh stylistically. It read fine, but sometimes a bit of a pain to translate accurately while keeping true to the original.
Ooh, yeah, that's true. I can't argue against that. There were definitely moments when the Raws worked in Korean, and it just wouldn't in English. It didn't work.
Seems like OBW, Open Bookworm, agrees on the difficulty in translating because he gave it a 7 for the same reason. He says that at times he wished the author used a bit less purple prosy, but it also didn't feel like the author was trying to pad word count. I had to look up what purple prosy was. I thought it was a typo at first, till I googled it and saw that it's flowery and ornate writing that makes a piece of text impenetrable. Okay, you know what? I had no idea what purple prosy meant, and I looked it up. And then I have no idea what the description means.
I mean, I had to look it up too, but it's just flowery nonsense, I guess. Yeah, it's just flowery and it's over fluffy. Like the definition, I guess. Anyways, moving on. Momo's score for writing style. Now, hers is based on the translators version, so she can't read Korean, but she gives it an 8, saying that it was pretty good.
Short, sweet, and to the point. My kind of review, not like those philosophical, the type that makes
purple
me feel
prosy
dumb.
ones. The purple ones.
Our previous episode with the two distinguished guests, they were too smart for me. Too much brain cells going on.
Boy, too much
Young
purple
noble.
prose.
Yeah. Young noble. Anyway,
Really?
my kind of review. Up next, world building. Looks like Dan gives it the highest score here at 8. He says,
Ooh.
I think the novel did a fine job of balancing the depths of the world to which was necessary.
Okay. OVW disagrees with that review since he gives it an unfortunate 6, saying that it was interesting, but it felt like a lot of the backstory was half-baked. So for him, all the different countries felt like scenery to Eugene's story, and he wanted to know more about the setting.
Seems like Momo's is a mix of the two. She gave it a 7, saying Damn Reincarnation did a good job with the world building since it allowed readers to imagine the overall world and the different cities, but it wasn't enough to be fully immersive for her.
Momo, if you can imagine the world, but it isn't immersive, and what more do you want from it, though? If you can imagine and it is immersive.
I mean, she does say that it wasn't enough for her, right?
Well, I don't agree with your opinion, Momo. I don't.
Oh, wait. I got a text from Momo. I don't care.
Rude!
Anyway, originality.
Dan gives it an 8, saying the author did a fine job in terms of like original progression, even though it begins with a reincarnation cliche. What is an original progression, Dan? What are you trying to say there?
OBW gave it a high score of 9. He says that the author did a good job putting a new spin on old tropes. It's extremely difficult to write a wholly original story, but from the main character to the twist in the storyline, there were a lot of things he's never seen in other novels.
I love it when translators give a high score for their own novel. So, with that in mind, Momo, what is wrong with you? Why are you giving it a 7 but then also saying high score? Like, that doesn't make sense.
I can see you're all riled up about it, but why don't you read out her full review so we can all understand? Maybe, who knows?
Okay. So she says, the reincarnation theme itself isn't original, but the multiple reincarnations were definitely unexpected and interesting. Another point that makes this a high score for me is the absence of typical patriarch trying to smother the genius of branch families or the scheming and backstabbing. Toki, correct me if I'm wrong, but those are all good points, no? Like, I want to erase her score, make it change the 7 to a 9, because what? Like, why?
As much as I want to edit her score too, no editing scores here. You can give it a 9, but we'll keep it 7 for the official score.
Bah.
Moving on to pacing. Oh, you're not gonna like these scores, Yoj.
No, don't tell me.
Both OBW and Momo gave it a 7. And Dan could have been your saving grace, but he gave it a 6.
Why? Why, Dan? Why?
Okay, Dan gives it a 6 because some bits were so slow that the reader could skip those chapters and not miss anything. He does follow up by saying that Damn Reincarnation progressed gracefully and definitely had details and action scenes to keep the readers engaged.
Okay, I can see that.
Some parts were definitely slow and felt like filler chapters, but I think he's being a bit harsh.
You know what? For once, I agree with you, Toki. I absolutely agree. Okay, so moving on to OBW and Momo's. They both gave it a 7, but for different reasons. Seems like OBW agrees with Dan since he says there was a sense of mounting tension near the end, but there were definitely parts of the novel I could have skipped without feeling like I missed something. Ouch.
Momo gives a different reason for her 7. Seems like her biggest thing was the inconsistency in pacing rather than filler chapters. This is what she says. It was a bit slow at first and nothing wrong with it, especially when we are just getting to know the characters and the world. It picked up pace at the end, and though there was nothing wrong with it, it definitely didn't proceed at the same pace throughout.
Okay, you know what? I can agree with those scores. I take back my whining, but only for this section.
Wow, that's a rare first.
I know.
You taking back your whining?
I know. I rarely take back my whining. I whine all the time. Okay, moving on to our last section, quirkiness. I want to believe the team will be nice, but I have no hope.
Well, I'm glad you know your translators, because we got 2 6s and a 5. A bloody fucking 5.
You know what? We're just gonna zoom through it. I can't anymore. So Dan gives it a 6, and his reasoning is to compare it to food, it was more a nice, steaming bowl of mom's homemade soup rather than anything exotic. But sometimes that's what you need, a bowl of nice, steaming, warm soup. Dan?
Does his mom suck at cooking? He's giving his mom's homemade soup a 6? I hope she doesn't listen to this, you know? Somebody's gonna starve tonight.
Hold on. Wasn't there a chef in the Korean competition show Culinary Class Wars who got praised for her home-style cooking? If Dan was one of the judges, she would have dropped out sooner. She would have failed. Wow. Okay.
Well, OBW also give it a 6, saying there definitely seems to be a case of Flanderization. What the hell is with him and big words?
I had to look this one up too.
Flanderization with some of the characters.
It has to do with Ned Flanders. I think that's from Simpsons, right?
Okay.
Flanderization. Yeah, it has to do with Ned Flanders from Simpsons, whose initial traits begin as friendly, religious neighbor, and then it gets exaggerated into something overly religious fanatic. So basically, he's saying that the characters become overly exaggerated. OBW, you're too smart for us.
Interesting. Classic example he's given is Melkith was definitely the worst case of this, but it also added some comic relief. So, why a 6 though? Okay.
I've given up with this team, man. They all have good reason, and they go like, oh, but it's a 6, it's a 5. Speaking of 5s, let's move on to Momo's 5. Her reasoning is that there wasn't much quirkiness in Damn Reincarnation, though Seal's one-sided love was a bit weird, given they were distantly related and later become adopted siblings. Okay.
Well, you know what? I do agree with them, not with the reasons they gave, but with the scores, because Damn Reincarnation is really good and extremely well written, but in terms of quirkiness, I mean, it doesn't hold a candle to the other novels we've reviewed so far.
Fair point. Yeah. That's a good point. Nothing making us question the author's sanity.
I guess so. That brings us to a final score of 7 out of 10, rounded up. Or down.
So, it's rounded up, I think. So anyways, there you have it, guys. Damn Reincarnation is a good novel that begins and ends gracefully. It might not be Michelin star crazy, but it's a nice, hearty comfort read with great characters that'll continue to linger in your heart like a bowl of your mom's soup. Maybe not Dan's mom, but your mom's soup. Ouch. Thank you.
A 6 out of 10 soup.
Yeah. All right. Bye. Hope your soup is better.
See you in the next episode, everyone. Bye.
Thanks for joining us on Wuxiaworld's Teahouse. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to hit the follow button to stay updated with our latest releases. If you want more tea, hop over to our social media or Discord and send us an email if you want to spill the tea. We'll be back every Friday of each month, so check out our website, wuxiaworld.com. See you next episode. Bye!